And welcome to episode 375 of Geektown Radio. I am back this week with... Ray, how are you doing?
I am surviving. Let's just say I'm surviving. I'm doing good. Thank you, Dave.
Good. Excellent. So it's been a few weeks since you've been on. What have you been up to?
So I have been ploughing my way through lots of reality and entertainment, which I will not bore our fans with. You know, the likes of The Last Leg and Anton Dack, Saturday Night Takeaway and stuff like that. But I'm going to talk about some of the things I have finished, which have been on my list and have been talked about, I know, by some of the other co-hosts as well. So on Netflix, I finally finished Lockwood & Co.
Yes.
Still eagerly waiting that renewal notice. Hopefully, we all sit there in patience, hoping that Netflix are not going to do what they've done with so many others, because there is potential with it. I do like the style. I think it's got great critical review as well. I haven't seen many people talking badly of it, but
no,
you know, we're just going to hope and sit, and you know, it was cleverly done, and I'd never come across the books before, and then I saw them recently in a bookshop and I was almost tempted to, but I was like, I know the outcome of those two books now, so, so I really enjoyed that.
Yes, I really like that one too. Like you say, it's very hit and miss with the Netflix stuff about whether these things get renewed or not, but I hope that's one that they pick up again, because I really did enjoy that first season. I thought they did a solid job with it. Yeah,
a good cast. I mean, the actors, you know, they're really good for being a young cast. You know, they really hold that series together.
Yeah.
I sat down to watch Unforgotten, and in the style of your Happy Valleys and, you know, the type of dramas that you get, I thought, one a week, that's nice. I love to sort of drip feed. So I watched one, and then the next day I went back onto ITVX to watch something else, and it told me I could watch number 2.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, there's something wrong with my ITVX. And I clicked on and all the episodes were there. So the next day I finished Unforgotten, because I absolutely loved it up until obviously we lost the wonderful Nicola Walker. And so the first episode, I was a little bit tepid to it. Mm-hmm. I was a bit worried about her character, the person they've got in to replace Nicola Walker. But I binged through and I'm back in love with it again. I think they brought on a really interesting character, which is different enough, but also has that familiarity of being the lead and the sort of playing it with Sunny's character. Well, not Sunny's character, obviously. It's Sunny is the character. But fantastic drama. Again, and ITVX, like, you know, we talked so negatively this time last year about ITV and their hub, and I don't think I hardly watched anything on ITV last year, but I am absolutely loving what they're doing at the moment and some of the high quality programming that's on there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Have you done more than one episode, Dave, or have you started it? Or
not Unforgotten. No, I've never actually watched that show, and I know you've been going on about how good it is, and I really should jump into it. I haven't watched Happy Valley either, so you know. I mean, on the subject of the ITVX system, though, it is a massive upgrade from the ITV hub, because I used to hate that thing as well, and they've done a really nice job with it, and it's available on Sky, which the hub wasn't. So that I think is really nice as well. So you're not going to go outside. If you've got Skybox, you can sit within that ecosystem and get the stuff off there quite easily, which is quite useful. And the quality of the content, like you say, it's been very, very good. A lot of their original stuff have been decent, high quality. Things like Nolly were fantastic. They also are buying in some really interesting box sets.
Yeah, really good stuff.
There's a lot of old box sets that they're buying in. They seem to have done a deal with Warner Brothers for a lot of the old CW shows. Things like, I think Vampire Diaries is on there or coming on.
Smallville.
Smallville. There's a number of those series. They've got All American on, which is actually a premiere rather than something that's aired somewhere else previously. But they've got like Crazy Ex-Girlfriend is going on there, and there's a lot of those big CW box sets of older shows, and Gotham, which technically was Fox, but again, it's WB. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff that they've picked up as sort of that younger audience vibe that they're putting on there. So there's a lot of really interesting, just original content and stuff that they filled out from American imports, and all sorts of other bits and pieces on there. So it's been a really good system.
They also have been obviously working with really renowned writers and directors of a lot of the previous shows. So the next show that I just finished, a 3-episode series called You and Me from Russell T Davies, not directly involved. He's involved in sort of like an executive producer capacity. But you can tell there's that influence on him. And it's just a beautiful story in 3 parts, and it only needs 3 parts. It doesn't need to be dragged out over 6 nights. And it is just about these 2 characters and their journey about meeting, and it's heartbreaking. The first episode is absolutely heartbreaking. It was really told brilliantly, and I just reflected on like watching Nolly the previous month and then watching You and Me. ITVX are starting to be brave, like BBC have started to do, and allowing writers to write for the number of episodes they think it is, rather than dragging it through to make it like a 6-episode 4-episode series that sometimes doesn't need to be. So You and Me, if anybody wants to go and see that, 3 episodes, obviously on ITVX, if you have the subscription, they're 45-minute long, brilliant soundtrack, brilliant visuals, great storytelling, and some superb acting as well. And I absolutely loved it, and it was quite a really good emotional show. But those are the things I finished, and I'm really happy with that. Still on ITVX, I started The Bay, again, all available. I watched the first 2 episodes of that. Classic. And you know what I think I'm starting to really like those slow paced dramas. They go too quickly for me sometimes. I think I switch off. But The Bay, in the similar way to Unforgotten, is like slowly easing out the storyline over the course of 6 episodes and really develop the characters and the narrative. So I'm watching that. I was so desperate to finish The Last of Us this weekend, Dave. You had obviously advised me to watch it. I got a little bit behind around the time of the Super Bowl. Right. And then I watched episode 7 last week, had a couple of days available. So I watched episode 7. And in my head, I was like, I'll watch that at the weekend. But it was Mother's Day at the weekend.
Yes.
And we had a mother down to visit. So it just got so late on Sunday, and I realized I was never going to fit in the last 2 episodes. Yeah. So I've got those to do. But I'm hearing mixed things about the last episode. But I am very open because I don't know the game and I have no preconceptions. But I've loved the storytelling. Yeah. I've loved that it's about them as characters and survival and instincts, and it's not about the infected too much. And that's quite nice. Yeah, so thank you for pursuing it with me, and I'm glad I have watched it.
Yeah, no, it's been a phenomenal series just throughout. You're at episode 7. You've just done Left Behind, which is the Ellie focused episode, which is the beautiful, stunning episode. I think that episode 3, I think, is the high point, the Bill and Frank episode of the entire run. I mean, that's the episode that I think needs the Emmy nominations and stuff if you're going to put one episode up. But Left Behind, I think, is another really strong episode. And episode 5 as well, which was the Henry and Sam episode, is just gut-wrenching. And I mean, there's a number of moments throughout that. As I said, when we were talking about this on the Last of Us podcast over on Entertainment Talk, there is a reason that there are only 2 characters in the entire show that are listed as main cast, because everybody else is disposable.
But yeah, it just, I don't think, I remember watching The Walking Dead when we first started, and it compares to this a lot, I know, but I do not believe the characters had as much heart and you really wanted them to succeed as we do with Joel and Ellie. And I think that's what's the beauty of the storytelling. Whereas when you had like Rick and all of his family, it was a much of a muchness there. They had really sides of their characters you didn't want. And I just think that's the storytelling. If we're going to compare, they've really brought the best out of their characters. And no, I will look forward to season 2. I know that it's been announced, even though I haven't seen episode 8 and 9 yet. I still am excited that there will be a follow-on.
There will be. And the second season is going to be based on the second game, but it's actually going to be the second and third season will be based on the second game. Well, he said multiple seasons will be based on the second game, because the second game is actually quite a lot longer than the first. I haven't actually played the second one. Matt obviously has an awful lot. But it is quite a lot longer, that second game, and they're not going to try and squash it into one season. They're going to pull it out over a number of seasons. But it is a lot longer as well. So there is going to be much more of that to come. There was an interesting little bit that came out this week as well about Melanie Linsky, who played Kathleen, who was the leader of that Kansas City resistance movement in the fourth episode. Fourth episode. She's married to Jason Ritter, who you all know from things like Raising Dion, and he was in The Event and Joan of Arcadia and Parenthood and a whole bunch of other things. He apparently played one of the clickers in that episode.
Oh, really?
She described it as bring your husband to work day.
Probably one of the ones who, no, that's a spoiler. One of the ones who got close to her in her final episode.
Yes, yeah. So it might very well have been. I don't know whether he was the one, but yeah, it's very funny. I don't know whether he's just a fan of the game or they just thought it'd be funny to bring him in because, I mean, he is a well-known actor in his own right. So, he apparently was under the clicker makeup for one of them.
Oh no, I'm really looking forward to that. Can't wait for that when I do get around to finishing it. And the other things I've been watching is I am very much looking forward to what's going to come up with the new X-Men cartoon later this year. So I thought I need to stop thinking about it and get on with it. I started a rewatch of X-Men 1997 cartoon, starting with the very first season. And I thought I'm going to sort of binge my way through that now in Easter in anticipation of when that is finally released later this year. Cool. And then I'm getting on with loads of procedurals, as I mentioned, and I will be doing all Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Equalizer, Beyond Paradise, CSI Vegas, all these like weekly procedurals I've been getting on with and enjoying those. Tomorrow night, I'm off to see Shazam! Fury of the Gods. A little bit late in its release date, but as you know, I'm busy weekend, so I'm going to go off and see that with a friend tomorrow night. So hopefully it won't disappoint. I've tried to avoid all reviews and spoilers so far.
Good.
So whatever is coming will surprise me or whatever. And I will wait a little bit because I'll have a little chat with you a little bit later about the Oscars news, but I will hand over to you, Dave. What's been happening with you over the last week?
Well, I mean, back on Netflix in terms of TV shows, Shadow and Bone started its second season, which I really enjoyed the first season of that. It's based on a book series, which I don't know at all. Enjoyed the first episode of the second season. I did end up going onto YouTube and finding a decent recap. They did sort of do a recap at the start of that, and I was like, no, that's not reminding me anywhere near as much as it needs to. So I went and found a sort of 15-minute recap of season 1 on YouTube to remind me where everybody was and what has happened and stuff. But yeah, second season pretty much is a straight continuation on from the first. Picks up with the various people escaping. The Darkling is sort of starting to rain havoc and all that sort of stuff. So that has been a really solid series. It's in the same sort of vein as Lockwood and Co. And it does slightly worry me that it's one of those things where they may go, we'll have one or the other. But yes. So, season 2 of that, I'm starting to work my way through. I'm actually gone back to The Crown as well on Netflix because the 5th season of that came out a while back and I'd watched sort of an episode of it and then other things got in the way and I didn't pick it back up again. So I'm going through that right now. They've just got to the Diana interview episode and the background to the stuff that Martin Bashir did to get that interview. So sleazy. I mean, I know The Crown makes some stuff up, but I'm assuming a lot of that is genuine because he does not come off well. And I mean, it's a proper character assassination if it isn't. But I mean, that was really quite bad. But yeah, that's been a really good series. And like I say, I know it's sort of a lot of it. They got in trouble for some of the stuff that they appeared to be drawing on that. But I have been very much enjoyed it. You've just got to remember that it is a work of fiction in a lot of places as well. It's been interesting with this season because they've actually gone back and used some flashback stuff, either using the older cast or the younger cast from the earlier seasons, let's put it that way. So they've done a couple of bits with that, and they've also had some bits where they've gone way back and actually done some sort of new flashback stuff as well, set sort of pre-First World War and things, and build up to the First World War.
Did I read that? I mean, I am very behind on this. I think we are currently going to start watching season 2 together soon, me and my partner. Did I read that some of the actresses went back to film the flashbacks?
I think they did, yes.
Yeah. Who played her in the first season? What's the actress's
Claire
name?
Foy.
Claire Foy, I'm sure she's been interviewed on something like Graham Norton or something and said that she made a surprise reappearance on set to help them film a flashback. Yeah.
So some of those flashbacks, I thought because I didn't remember the scenes from earlier on, so I thought they must have pulled her back in to do a couple of those bits and pieces. And they've done that, I think, with a couple of the characters throughout this. There's a couple of places where they've done that, which has been really quite a nice way of doing it. Yeah, you've got to remember it's a work of fiction, but it is still quite enjoyable. Those are the sort of drama-y things I've been watching. I've also got sort of regular stuff, which I'm doing weekly, as well as a few procedurals like CSI Vegas, and I'm doing 911 Lone Star as well.
Oh, yeah.
Also Bad Batch, which I think he's turning into a great little series this season. It's a bit like with Clone Wars. Clone Wars took a couple of seasons to really start to find its feet, and I think Bad Batch is really doing that now. I mean, I enjoyed it from the first season as well, but I think it's really started to find a kind of groove, and there's a lot more stuff about the clones in this second season, and the sort of transition from the clones across into stormtroopers, and there's a lot more of that stuff going on, which is quite interesting. And Mandalorian as well, which I'm working through at the moment, and that it's been good. There's some really jarring jumps in the way that they're telling the story, like the episode that went out this week. It starts off with Bo-Katan and the Mandalorian, and then there's like an entirely different episode wedged in the middle of it, which is this story of sort of these rehabilitated Imperial people that have sort of been rehabilitated by the New Republic and been brought back in again. And he's disconnected seemingly from everything else that's going on, and that's the bulk of the episode. And then you sort of jump back to Mandalorian and Bo-Katan at the end, and it's like that. It's just a really odd way of doing it. I mean, it's bottle episode-ish, but usually there's some sort of smooth transition from the story they're telling, like with The Last of Us. You know, when they went and did the Left Behind episode, Ellie is worried about Joel, and it sort of transitions into, you know, the other close friendship that she had, and you get this backstory of her. So it's sort of, there is a flow to it of like why you're getting that story there. Yeah. Whereas with this, it just feels a bit like, well, we've got this story to tell, I don't know, we'll just bung it in the middle of this episode. It feels really oddly placed, but I mean, fine. It was enjoyable. There's nothing wrong with the actual story itself, and it was interesting and fine, but the structure of it is just a bit kind of chopped. And that's happened a couple of times with some of the story points they've picked up, is like they've abandoned story points. There's a thing with a droid quite early on in the first episode, and it's like, I must have this droid to go with me, and then by the second episode he's sort of forgotten about that and gone somewhere else, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, you said you needed that specific droid. But yes, it's one of those things that may pull together towards the end of the season, but at the moment it seems a bit like, well, why isn't that come back, and why isn't that connected to that? And you know, so, well, I mean, I'm sure, I have faith that it will make sense by the end of the season, but yes, it does feel a bit all over the place. The other thing I watched was Challenge Anneka, which I know we don't talk about reality stuff particularly, but this is such a classic reality TV thing, and I used to really enjoy watching that show when I was a child, and you know, I watched it with like my grandmother, and it has a sort of place in my heart, that show. It's basically exactly the same show that it was before. It's Anneka Rice who is given a challenge, and in this particular case it was to do a massive renovation of a dog charity that supports dog adoption, and they needed new kennels, and they needed the place sort of, you know, sprucing up basically, and she spends 3 days doing this massive overhaul of like this whole dog sanctuary, and does a fantastic job of it. And of course it's people adopting dogs, so there's pulling at the heartstrings, and it's exactly what you expect from that show. But she's back, Dave the Soundman is back, the buggy is back, the big van is back, although I think they've modified that now, so it sort of turns into an office, the sides pop out and it turns into this big mobile office thing. So yeah, I mean, that was, if you like those sort of shows, I mean, it's quite long as well. It's an hour and a half, that show as well. But yeah, really quite enjoyable. The type of thing you can watch with a family on a Sunday evening, you know, it's that sort of show.
There was some mixed marketing about its figures, and some people saying that it was really low, but Channel 5 are marketing it as one of their high highest.
Well, yeah.
But if you look at Channel 5 and their normal turnover of audience, then it was pretty good. But it went up against the new one on Channel 4 on Sunday night as well, Rise and Fall, which had a lot of promo from it being from the creators of The Traitors. Yeah. So that was bound to get a lot of traction anyway. So, but, you know, everyone's catch-up services are doing so well at the moment that I'm sure My 5 will get a lot of traction on it on the back of just that little press coverage to say it was out at the weekend. So
yeah. And as we've mentioned before on this, the thing is, if you're looking at ratings for TV shows, you really can only compare them against the ratings of that channel. Yeah. You know, I mean, the fact that if you put something on the BBC and it absolutely trounces everything else, well, yes, okay, fine. But in terms of whether a show gets renewed or cancelled, it only really matters whether it's outrunning shows on that channel. And it's the same with the US, you know, the cancellation bear, you know, which is the whole thing about when you're outrunning a bear, you just have to outrun everybody else you're with, not like everybody else in the world. Yeah. And it's the same with the TV show, you know, you just need to outrun the other shows that are on that channel. So numbers are low for Channel 5 anyway, and if it didn't get a huge audience but got a huge audience for Channel 5, then they'll bring it back again. There was one other little bit of news, which was Lance Reddick. He sadly passed away. He was 60 years old, which is way too young. Apparently died of natural causes. He's one of those jobbing actors who you'll know from certain shows. He was in Oz, he was in Fringe, he was in The Wire, he was in the recent Netflix Resident Evil series, he was in Bosch, he did a stint on Law and Order Special Victims Unit. He was also a voiceover artist and did Legends of Vox Machina. I think he played the bad guy in that. He's in the John Wick films. Paradise PD, he did one of the voices on. He did a number of games voices for Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West, Quantum Break, Destiny. He was one of the main voices of as well. Incredibly sad to lose him. He's a beautiful, wonderful actor and person from all the accounts of people that have worked with him. So, yeah, very sad to lose him. I don't know how well you knew his work.
I was a huge fan of him after Fringe. He was just like eerily. And then you saw him in John Wick. And Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't he supposed to be heading up a spin-off of the John Wick based on the hotel?
No, the Continental is still going.
Okay.
It was only a mini-series they were doing it as well. I don't think he was actually involved in it because it was a younger bunch of. It was set earlier in the timeline, so the character may be in it, but it would have been played by a younger actor. Yeah. But yes, that is still happening. It's Peacock that have taken that, I think, now, because it was on a different network, I think, originally. Yeah, very sad to lose him. And they've said it's natural causes. As to exactly what that is, we don't know whether it was a heart problem or, I mean, it could have been brain aneurysm or something like that, but it wasn't anything nefarious. But yes, very sad to lose him. You mentioned the Oscars earlier. So yeah, we talked obviously a bit about this last week. Huge wins for Everything Everywhere All at Once. What were your thoughts on it as a film person?
as the film person, not proud of that title, but I've not been very good this year as I'm about to go and see my second film of the year tomorrow. Yes. I am really impressed by its win, and I am just sad there's a lot of negativity surrounding it, and I'm not sure why. It's because it isn't as mainstream as I think people wanted. And it's also about multiverses and superheroes. And so there's been some people saying, they just didn't like it. I remember loving it. And I remember when I came on to review it, I'd seen it the day before I saw Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness.
Yes.
So to have that comparison, I absolutely loved the film. I think it is an acquired taste and takes some focus. But to be honest, if you're a Michelle Yeoh fan, like, there is no reason why you shouldn't go and adore this movie. She is amazing. And I would have been, if anyone else had won the Best Actress and not be Michelle Yeoh, I would have been shocked. And there were some fantastic people up on the slate for nominations this year, but she absolutely deserved it. Yeah. And then for the film to pick up 6 more, I just am overwhelmed by how amazing it's done. And for the film studio A24 in particular, brilliant. You know, they have really picked up their game and got their best ever round of awards this season through everything, through all the nominations and awards shows that take place. I'm really impressed. It's also just Brendan Fraser. Again, if we round back like 7-8 years, what people thought of Brendan Fraser as an actor, he wasn't doing anything remarkable. He taken some really bad decisions in terms of some of the films he was doing, but look at him turn that around and to win. And I've heard such amazing things about The Whale. Not seen it myself, but that's an absolute deserved win as well. And then All Quiet on the Western Front cleaning up on a lot of the technical awards as well. So I think it was a really, really good season. I know there are some doubters out there, and I would have loved to see Black Panther coming away with an award, but it's what it is. And at this point in time, I think we should celebrate. Let's move on. Let's see what 2023 brings us for the 2024 Oscars. And hopefully I will see a few more films this time.
Yeah, I mean, the wins for that were just wonderful. And I was smiling all over the place. I know Angela Bassett not winning for Best Supporting Actress was Jamie Lee Curtis picking that up. I understand why people were upset by that. I still think Jamie deserved it, and I think it was probably just her year for it. It's one of those things. Ke Huy probably just mangled his name, but winning for Everything Everywhere as well was, as we talked about last week, just a wonderful end to a crazy, crazy few years for that guy. And I was so happy because that was completely deserved as well. I mean, to have stepped out of acting in his 20s when his roles kind of dried up after being a child actor, and then to step back in it 30 years later in his 50s, and then the first film he does, he wins an Oscar. He's just phenomenal.
Did you see the stage picture with Steven Spielberg as well? Not stage, but like the picture he took with Steven Spielberg mirrored against the one when he did Indiana Jones.
Oh no, I haven't seen that one. That's lovely. I did think it was wonderful that the person that presented the award for Best Picture was Harrison Ford as well. And to see those two on stage together, the co-star of his first movie, just absolutely beautiful. The way that came together, I think that was just wonderful. It was really sort of interesting. The ones that picked up, like Avatar for Best Visual Effects, of course. Top Gun picked up things for, some technical things for like Best Sound and things. I was really happy to see Brendan Fraser picking up for Best Actor as well. So yeah. That's all the stuff we've been doing this week. Let's move on to some TV and film news. So we kick off the TV and film news with the renewals, cancellations and pickups. There's a few cancellations. Prime Video has cancelled 3 Pines after one season, which was, I think it was a sort of investigative drama series thing, but that not been renewed for another season. Over on the BBC, they've cancelled The Witchfinder after one season, which I have to say I'm not hugely surprised by that. It was that was a thing about the failing Witchfinder played by Tim Key, who's transporting a suspected witch played by Daisy May Cooper across 1640s East Anglia. The idea of it was a lot funnier than the show was, unfortunately. Did you catch any of that?
I did. And when I was watching it, I felt it was a one season and done type thing anyway. Yeah. So when all the news came out this week, I genuinely was sat there going, he expected that to be more than one. It felt like a one season. What else could they have done with that character, with that storyline? So I was happy with it ending there. I didn't feel it needed to do any more.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the sound of it, and I didn't find it as funny as I think it probably needed to be, which is a shame. So that's gone after one season. The other thing, which is actually not cancelled, is Willow. There was a lot of stories that came out this week that said, oh, Willow's cancelled after one season. However, John Kasdan, who is the series creator, said it actually isn't cancelled. What we have done is released all the cast. Basically, what happened was they got to the point where they realized they weren't going to be able to shoot it as soon as they wanted to. So rather than having the cast all under contract, which is very, very expensive because you've got to pay them to basically not work on other things. They just thought, we'll just release the cast from their contracts, and we have a season 2 written and prepared. It's hopefully something we'll come back to in a couple of years. So that's basically the situation with it. They said, we do think we are going to shoot it, but not for at least another 12 months. So they released all the cast from all their contracts and stuff, which means that they can go off and find other projects, which is absolutely fine. You know, we waited, 30 years for this series to be made in the first place. So, you know, I think fair enough that that's the situation with it. And it may come back for another season. It may not. They have got another season in mind. It says that it's been written. So we'll see. In terms of renewals, Taskmaster, I know you'll be very glad to hear, has been renewed for 6 more seasons, which is 3 more years because they do 2 seasons a year. So that's all being renewed. It's also got a junior spin-off series coming as well, which won't be hosted by Alex and Greg. Alex because he's too busy doing other things, and Greg because he has a serious disdain for children.
That's a classic press release, that is.
that was actually basically what he said in the press release. I mean, he is an ex-teacher, so, you know, it's fair enough. That is going to be hosted by some more child-appropriate people, I think. The main show will be back for 6 more seasons on top of that as well, which is great news for Taskmaster. The new season 15, is airing on 30th of March. That's Thursday, the 30th of March on Channel 4. So new season is coming fairly soon as well. Other renewals, Bel-Air has been renewed for season 3 on Peacock. I think season 2 is going out on Sky now. I think they've decided they've sort of abandoned the whole Peacock project.
Is it out? I didn't even realise it was out. I must have missed that.
I'm not sure whether it's out yet or whether they've said it is coming onto Sky soon. I can't actually remember. If only I had a site that had air dates on it. Hang on a second. Yes, season 2 will be coming to Sky Max in May.
Oh, okay. May. So, that's why I hadn't seen it yet. Yeah,
that will be coming back. The whole Peacock thing they seem to have given up on because there's basically nothing on it. I mean, it was a bit half-hearted in the first place, but they looks like the whole Peacock branded thing, I think they've sort of killed. So second season's going out on Sky Max in May. Days of Our Lives, which I don't think airs over here, but is a huge American ongoing soap, one of the few soaps that they actually have. That has been renewed for 2 more seasons by Peacock as well, so that will be coming back.
Joey Tribbiani was in that.
Right, yeah. It's very much that level as well. So in pickups and other news, we have a new Bake Off host. Alison Hammond has been picked as the host to replace Matt Lucas. She seems like quite a good choice, I would have thought, for that. She's incredibly kind of likable and bubbly, I think. I mean, maybe slightly too bubbly for some people's taste, but I don't really watch Bake Off. I know you do, so.
Yeah, I think she'll be good. I'm going to say it now, and if it happens, then I've said it. I believe this will therefore be the last year for Noel. I think their personalities are quite different, so I don't know if Noel will continue after this season. I imagine that he'll do this one, and then he might step back himself because she is such a vibrant personality. I think she's even bigger than Matt Lucas in terms of her personality, that it might be slightly too much for Noel and his ways. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see this being the last year for Noel.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you there. I mean, as I say, I don't really watch the show, but those are 2 people that I don't really see working together. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. It may work wonderfully, but yeah, that's going to be interesting. But yes, you could very much be right there. There was a bunch of dates that literally dropped today as well for a few things returning on Disney Plus in April. How I Met Your Father Season 2, Part 1 of that, because they've only released 11 episodes so far in the US. So Part 1 of that, 19th of April, that's dropping. True Lies, the TV series based on the James Cameron movie, that's also coming on the 19th as well. Will Trent, which is a new comedy drama that's been released in the US, which I think it's based on a book series, so there's a lot of talk about that. 26th of April for that. Oh yeah, Peter Pan and Wendy, they've also said 28th of April for that movie dropping as well. So yeah, there's a few things coming back. Oh, and Grownish Part 2, 5th of April. That was the other thing for Part 2 of Season 5. So lots of things coming in April on Disney Plus. BBC have picked up a TV show from Australia. It's a romantic comedy called Colin from Accounts. It's apparently very critically acclaimed over there. It's created, written by and starring Patrick Brammall, who you might know from Glitch and Offspring, and Harriet Dyer from Invisible Man and No Activity. It's an 8-part series that centres on Ashley and Gordon, two single-ish complex humans who are brought together by a car accident and an injured dog. It's about flawed, funny people choosing each other and being brave enough to show their truth selves, scars and all, as they navigate life together. So, I mean, it sounds kind of generic in terms of the sort of romantic comedy setup. It's not one I'd come across before, and I don't really know the cast. So it will be on BBC, I think, 2. I think they said in iPlayer. It's one of those things that they're buying as a box set for iPlayer. No date for that yet, but it's coming soon. There was a little bit of news from Zach Levy, because of course he's out doing, or has been out recently doing press for Shazam. And one of the questions came up about Chuck, the TV show that he used to do. And he's actually holding out hope for bringing the cast back together to do a Chuck movie at some point. So he's been trying to make a Chuck movie since before we finished the show. I saw the writing was on the wall. I saw a lot of streaming stuff already starting to pop up. I saw people like Zach Braff, I think, was crowdfunding, and it's like, Veronica Mars as well. They crowdfunded the movie for that. So it was like, clearly there's an appetite for people wanting to see additions to the series that they held dear to their heart. I could stand to see a Chuck film. Certainly, a TV movie based around that. I think that has some potential. Did you watch any of the series? Because it is a great TV series.
Yeah, I remember watching season 1 and a bit of season 2 many years ago when I was a Sky owner. I used to save them on Sky and watch them. And then I think I just lost interest after season 2. But yeah, I did enjoy it. And that's where I first saw Zachary Levi. And I was like, yeah, I really like him as an actor. And so when I saw he got his Shazam, I was really pleased.
Yeah, I know. He's a great actor. I've seen him at a few cons, and he's a really lovely human being as well. And he talks very passionately about things like mental health and just really wonderful with fans. First time he did a con in Birmingham, it was very, very early on. And I've spoken about this on something recently. And he took a bunch of people. He basically invited everybody down to Subway to get Subways. And he got like 200 people with him from the con and sort of overwhelmed the local Subway, because Subway were quite a big sponsor of Chuck, which was the main thing he was doing at the time. So quite funny. But yeah, he's really quite sweet when he's done cons and stuff. He's been really great. So I could stand to see a Chuck movie. Whether it ever happens or not, we'll have to wait and see. But it's certainly one that I would like to see pop up. On to some other news stories. Gattaca. Do you remember that film?
I do. Didn't see it, but I remember it being released. I was thinking I was a teenager back then as well.
Yes.
But I vaguely remember it, but I didn't see it.
97, that film came out. The premise for the movie, it's this sort of dystopian biopunk future society where genetic selection is commonplace. So children can be created by this practice of genetically selecting to sort of get the best genes you can. They're known as valids, and they're given many more opportunities in life, whereas children who are born naturally are more likely to be prone to genetic disorders, and they're known as invalids. But the genetic disorders they're talking about, it then becomes, because you've got these sort of pristine humans, any minor flaw is seen as a genetic disorder. So the sort of gap between the valids and invalids is quite large. The invalids are relegated to more menial jobs and serve as basically second-class citizens. The film, which starred Ethan Hawke as Vincent, who is an invalid, and he has this congenital heart condition. He basically follows his story as he attempts to try and assume the identity of a valid former athlete in order to fulfill his dreams of traveling into space. So that's the setup for the movie. The reason we're talking about this is because there is a TV series in development for Showtime and Paramount from the guys behind Homeland, who were also the guys behind 24 as well. So they've got a reasonable track record behind them. They are looking at doing a TV show based on it. They've also got Craig Borton, who was behind the Dallas Buyers Club film. He's also involved in it as well in the writing. It sounds like it's not so much a continuation. It is another adaptation of the movie. So it will have that same sort of plot line of following an invalid who is taking the identity of a valid to try and fulfill their dreams. It's not officially been confirmed, but negotiations are underway with Sony Pictures Television, who are going to be the people that would make it. Any interest in this? I mean, the film had an interesting world set up for it, but I don't know whether there's a sort of more than one season out of it. You know, it's one of those things.
It does not appeal to me at all, I'm afraid. I saw the article when it was released and I was like, oh, no, I'm not really interested in that. I don't think I would want to watch it.
I think there is potential there for an interesting world. You know, the sort of dystopian future thing, I think, can be an interesting place to play around with. And there is a lot of class stuff that you can mess around with there.
I don't think it's got a strong enough IP either. Like, it's not something you're like, oh, I remember that film. Oh, I'd love to. But it's kind of like, oh, I vaguely remember it. I remember the name. Is it because the name is a little bit out there in terms of the normal name for a film? But yeah, that's why I think part of it falls down, is because it doesn't have an IP that everyone knows about and would like to follow.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it is an interesting idea, and maybe, honestly, don't know. I am encouraged by the people that are behind it, because Homeland was a fantastic series. 24 was a fantastic series. They've also got a thing called Accused, which is on Fox in the US at the moment, based on the British drama, which is going down very well. So, I mean, they've got a solid bunch of things behind them. I mean, we would rather they went back and made more 24, but, you know, we'll take what we can get at this point. Over on casting news, we have The Penguin has got some more cast announced for it. This is the TV series, which is based on the Batman movie, and we'll have Colin Farrell back in the lead role as Penguin, and Kristen Milotti is joining him as well. She is playing Sophia Falcone, who is one of the main sort of members of the Falcone crime family, if you know your Batman history. They've also added in Theo Rossi in a key role as well, who is one of the Sons of Anarchy guys. He was also, he's actually a Marvel and DC person now, because he was in Luke Cage as well. So he will be popping up in it. I don't think they've actually said what character he is playing, but I think he's a solid addition to this as well. What are your thoughts on the Penguin series?
You know what? I really love Colin Farrell's version of him. That was one of the highlights of the film, even though it was 3.5 hours long or whatever.
Yes.
I hope it's done well, and I think it's going to have a lot of good budget behind it. Mm-hmm. Love Kristen Milioti. She's been in a lot of great things, films and TV programs. So yeah, I think I'd be interested in this. I have not fallen out, but I haven't stayed true to like some of the things like Gotham and Gotham Knights and things like that. I wouldn't want to. I think I'm bored of those, but this is a different spin on it with Colin Farrell. So yeah, I think I'll probably watch this.
Yeah, I like the setup with this. It's because, I mean, Gotham was fun, and I rather like that they embraced the silliness as they got further into it. With this, it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle it, because it is going to be obviously much darker and in some ways probably a little bit more serious as well. And the other advantage they've got is you're not dealing with proto versions of Gotham villains. You're dealing with a Gotham with a young Batman in it. And Penguin is a major crime boss. So if you can make this, which is sort of almost The Sopranos, but set in Gotham, I think there is a really interesting setup you could do there. You know, that sort of a serious crime drama, but it's set in a slightly out there superhero world. I do think there is a really interesting show in that, potentially. It's on HBO Max in the US, so God knows where it'll land over here. I mean, you know, it's one of those. I hope it's something that somebody like Sky Atlantic goes after and decides to put on. It seems in their kind of wheelhouse. So maybe, but we'll have to wait and see. They're shooting at the moment, so when that drops, I don't know exactly. Speaking of sort of superhero adjacent stuff, Doctor Who, which I would say is superhero adjacent in some respects, they have a spin-off series in the works, which is based around Unit, starring Gemma Redgrave, apparently. This hasn't been officially confirmed by the BBC, but there were multiple fairly reliable sources that were saying, yes, this is being talked about as being one of the spin-offs. We do know that Russell T Davies had already said that he wanted to bring the spin-offs back. A lot of people were hoping that means that they were going to revive Torchwood, and there has been some talk about possibly doing that. It probably will be a different iteration of Torchwood. It probably won't be a Captain Jack version. There has been some talk about maybe doing a much earlier, more historical version of Torchwood, because Torchwood has been around for a very, very long time. So maybe doing it more as in that sort of vein. But this will be a series that is based around UNIT. It has Gemma Redgrave back as Kate Lethbridge-Stewart. It was funny because I was at a Wales Comic Con back in November last year, and she was pushing for this really quite hard. It was a panel with her and Peter Davison and Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldridge, and I can't remember who else was there, but there was a couple of the companions there as well. And they were pushing for it quite hard as being a sort of potential spin-off idea, and it seems he may have listened. It would be from Russell T Davies, and I'm sure he'll rope other people in to help out writing that as well if it does actually happen. But I think there is certainly potential there as well. I mean, UNIT is the group that investigates paranormal and extraterrestrial threats at Earth. So I think there is certainly a potential to do a series based around that. I think Gemma Redgrave's great. She's great in that role. You can set up a decent team. You can bring in characters of the old companions and stuff that we know have been involved from more recent series. I think there is certainly a possibility there. Any thoughts on this?
I love Gemma Redgrave. I think she's a fantastic actress. I need to properly catch up on my Doctor Who. I got a bit lost in the middle of the Jodie season, and I do want to get it ready before Nikita starts. So I will definitely get involved in this. Russell T Davies, he's not getting much wrong at the moment. No. So if his name is behind it, then I'm probably going to be there.
Absolutely. I'm very excited for what he's bringing with Doctor Who. I think Ncuti looks great. You know, I think he's going to make a wonderful new Doctor. We've got the David Tennant stuff coming, which I think was a really interesting way of almost relaunching it again, because now they've got this Disney deal, so Disney are carrying it internationally and they're pumping more money into it. They don't have any kind of creative control directly, but they are going to want to make this a decent success internationally as well, and they're going to be well in for sort of spin-offs across the Whoniverse. Yeah, rather like the idea of this. I think it's certainly a good potential spin-off. As I say, given that they interact in similar kind of areas, it may like squash any possibility of a Torchwood revival anytime soon, but you know, I still think this is a solid thing to be able to do as well, and you know, it's in the current timeline, so not officially confirmed yet. We may get news about that at some point this year when we get more stuff about what's happening with the Tennant stuff and Ncuti and all that sort of thing, so we'll have to wait and see. But yes, looks good. That's all the news for this week. Let's move on to some highlights for next week on TV. So, highlights for next week. We have a Power Book 2 Ghost Season 3. That is coming to... I know, it's a terrible...
Sounds like an upgrade for a MacBook.
It does, yes. So, coming to Lionsgate Plus on the 23rd of March, that is. That's the continuation of the Power franchise, or one of the continuations of the Power franchise, so that's returning. The Cleaner Season 2, that returns on the 24th of March at 9:30. That's Greg Davis back as the crime scene cleaner. That was very funny, the first season of that, so that's returning. Yellow Jackets Season 2 of that returns to Paramount Plus. That's on the 24th of March. Great Expectations, which is the new adaptation from Peaky Blinders creator Stephen Knight. That's coming on the 26th of March. That's got Olivia Colman because she's in everything. And Succession returns for its fourth and final season. That's on the 27th of March on Sky Atlantic at 2 a.m. then with a repeat in the evening. That'll be the last season of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they wrap that up. Rabbit Hole, which is the new Kiefer Sutherland series, which stars him as a master of deception working in corporate espionage who gets framed for a murder. That looks like it's going to be quite good. That's on the 27th of March on Paramount Plus. That's called Rabbit Hole. And Hunted, the celebrity version of the reality show where people try and escape modern surveillance by living off the grid. That's coming to Channel 4 on the 28th of March at 9 p.m. and that'll be the Celebrity Stand Up for Cancer version. Yeah, lots of interesting stuff coming next week. Rabbit Hole I'm definitely going to be checking out. I will go and check out The Cleaner as well, because that was fun. I need to catch up a bit on Succession, but that looks good as well.
I'll definitely be watching The Cleaner. I think I've seen about 92 versions of Great Expectations now, so I'm not sure. I really love Olivia Colman, but I don't think I'm going to rush to this one.
No.
And my partner's already told me that we are watching Hunted, the celebrity version, so I won't get a choice in watching that one. So yeah, those are my two from there, The Cleaner and Hunted.
Yes, for me, Rabbit Hole, and I need to go back and catch up with Succession, but yes, and Cleaner, certainly. So, if people want to talk to you throughout the week, where can they go and find you?
Come follow me on Twitter at Gray the Geek. That's Gray the Geek. Probably do not disturb me for the next 2 days. Other than that, I will be around talking about what's going on. So if people know, I'm a teacher in my other job, and you can imagine why you need to stay away from me for the next 2 days.
Yes. So go and find Gray over on Twitter at Gray the Geek. For other people involved in the show, you can find Bex on twitch.tv/Trista Bytes, BYTES. She's streaming every week. I think she's doing Mondays and Tuesdays mainly now at the moment, but go and check her out. She's got a schedule over there because it moves around a little bit, but lots of charity streams and retro streams, and she's power washing things in Power Wash Simulator, unless she's managed to kick that addiction. But yes, that's been the main thing she's been doing, that and sort of chatting and power washing stuff. Matt, you can find over on entertainmenttalk.org for loads more podcasts. We've just finished the Last of Us podcast, so you can go and check that out over there if you're catching up with The Last of Us. There's also the Manu podcast and Gaming Talk and loads of other things going on over there, so go and check out his stuff at entertainmenttalk.org. And Daryl, you can find at hollywoodnorthnews.net for all the TV shows that you love, which are shot in Canada. For us, you can go to the website at geektown.co.uk throughout the week and see the latest air date information. If you want to get in touch with your questions or comments, email us on podcast@geektown.co.uk. Leave a message on the website post. Find us at Geektown on Twitter, at Facebook at facebook.com/Geektown, at YouTube at youtube.com/Geektown, and at Instagram at Geektown UK. That is everything. We shall see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.